Undoubtedly, Manchester City have been one of the most successful sides in world football over the last decade, particularly since Pep Guardiola took charge of the club. But in recent times, things haven't been so rosy. On top of the 115 plus charges currently looming over the club, City are finding it hard to win games with only one win in their last 12, and Pep's side have gone from being shorefront title contenders to maybe not even making the top 4. Now, is it just a blip, a team's getting used to the tactics, or is it that the squad is aging and it needs to be fixed? Maybe it's all three of those things, and today I'm going to step in, take over from Pep Guardiola and show him how it's done. Now, naturally, this is going to be a different rebuild to usual. We're not starting in a lower division and taking a club up to the top. Man City are already so close to the pinnacle. My job today will be to totally overhaul the squad over the next 5 years. We'll be seeing the departures of many of City's most important players and making a team full of the young stars for the future. But of course, there's already some great players here. Ballon d'Or winner Rodri needs no explanation and will be the backbone of our rebuild. And we have one of the world's best players, Erling Haaland, leading the line. There's also promising young talents like Rico Lewis, who could go to the very top. And whilst he hasn't set the world alight just yet, Jeremy Doku is a player that could be one of the world's best wingers. But in this rebuild, no player is safe. In fact, many of City's best players are either in their prime or have already exited that area. The likes of De Bruyne, Gundogan, Kyle Walker, who have been around the club for years, and even players like Jack Grealish, John Stones and Ruben Dias aren't exactly getting any younger. So in this rebuild, we're really going to be making the next era of Manchester City. Now, it goes without saying the club has some excellent facilities, and financially, we should be having no issues at all with plenty of money in the overall balance. And don't worry, City fans, in this rebuild, of course, the charges don't exist. I can't have a legal case going on in FM, so we are going to be able to bypass that issue that might crop up down the line for the club. But the pressure is on, as we are expected to easily win the title. We are favourites by a pretty big margin over everyone else, according to Football Manager. But like I say, this isn't just about winning trophies. We know this team is good when they are at their best, but I'm going to be really overhauling everything at the club. But first, we've got a transfer window to get underway to try and shore this team up for the future. And in our first transfer window, I think we're already getting ahead of the curve, something I think City need to be doing in real life, already having those star players ready to come through and take the place of those aging but very good players the club already has. And to ensure the development of some of our best youngsters, they need game time, so we're making sure they get that. The first departure from the club was not a permanent one, but Oscar Bob is a player that I think could be a future star of this City side. He'll be going out on loan to our affiliate club Girona out in Spain to hopefully get some game time and improve. And to the same club goes James McAtee, an academy player that we think could go to the very top, but he needs that football, so he goes to Spain too to hopefully find that. But when it comes to the incomings, I think we've already signed 2 players to help us down the line. Of course, in our first transfer window, the budget and the sales that we're able to make is going to be less, but in future seasons, there will be some big changes at the club. And for that reason, we need to be prepared. So our scouts have found a potential Rodri deputy in the form of Samu, who is a Portuguese 23-year-old playing out at Mallorca. There is going to be a focus on younger players in this rebuild, but we've managed to sign him from the Spanish leagues for 21 million quid. Now, is he the world's best midfielder? No. Is he still pretty good? Yes. And will he be happy being a deputy for Rodri? Almost certainly, but we've loaned him back out for the season because right now I don't quite think he's ready. Another year of football, and hopefully we'll have a Man City level squad player here for around 20 mil. But our other signing is one that I think can really push the first team when he comes in next season. It's Goncalo Ignacio of Sporting Club de Portugal, who will be vying for a starting spot in our team when he comes in. He's gone back out on loan for the season to Portugal also because I think the squad is actually okay where it is right now. It's future planning that we need to worry about. We spent £37.5 million on him, so it is a lot of money, but if he becomes a regular starter at Man City, that kind of fee won't be too bad at all. And when it comes to the tactics, I'm going to try and stick to what the players in this side already know. We're not going to overcomplicate it. We'll be playing a tiki-taka system. It's slightly different, of course, to what Pep does in real life, but there's a lot of the hallmarks of what he's trying in this tactic. And fingers crossed, this team is more than good enough to challenge for the title in year 1. But there is going to be some changes soon, and that's because Gundogan and De Bruyne only have this year on their contracts, and I won't be extending either of them the year after. We'll be looking at John Stones, Kyle Walker, Bernardo Silva, and Edison also as potential players players to leave the club. So in future seasons, there are going to be wholesale changes, but for right now, we stick with the team we've got, and in season 1, we've got to hope this team is already good enough to compete for a title, because with the levels Pepper's set, if we have anything less, we could lose our job straight away. And already in season 1, I think it's been made pretty clear to me as the manager that this team is going to need a lot of work if we're going to want to sustain the success that the club has had. In the Champions League, for example, we were expecting to compete for that trophy, but in a round of 16 we found ourselves 1-0 down, and it wasn't long before Barcelona were able to make it 2 through Dani Olmo. Being at the Etihad, we were expected to win this game, and it looked like we might have a chance again when Mateus Nunez scored, but as the game went on, Barcelona pulled further ahead, Dani Olmo again with a screamer. We did get back into the game in the second half with 50 minutes on the clock. Gundogan found Foden into De Bruyne to make it 3-2, but our defence was a shambles. A lot of ageing players really struggling together this year, as Balde managed to get into the area, found Ferran Torres to make it 4-2 against his old club. Barcelona though basically caused their own demise in this game when Frankie de Jong allowed Haaland to score from close, and with 80 minutes on the clock, Gundogan was able to find Haaland, who saved the day and got us a 4-4 result. So that individual game wasn't terrible, but it showed some flaws in our team, but it was the second leg that really proved true about how bad this team could actually be, because we got played off the park by a young Barcelona side who beat us 5-0 at the Nou Camp, 9-4 on aggregate, and our job was on the line straight after that game, but thankfully we had got some silverware already under our belt this season, because even though it's not the most desired trophy in the world, Doku helped us beat Liverpool 1-0 in the Carabao Cup final. And that was basically the only success we had all season, because alongside of that round of 16 early exit in the Champions League, we also lost out on the title to Spurs of all clubs. We won 26 games, drew 6 against some teams we'd expect to beat, and we lost 6 games as well, which really hurt us this year. We finished 4 points below the eventual winners. Yes, we were a little bit further ahead than competition like Arsenal, Liverpool, and supposedly Newcastle ended up getting 3rd place, but this is not where City should be. We should be a 90-point minimum club really with the squad that we've got, and this definitely felt like the end of a road for some of the key players that City have had over recent years. Some of the worst performers in the team included John Stones, Kyle Walker, Grealish, Akanji, Ake, Kovacic and Gundogan. Thankfully there were some good performances from some of the younger players like Savio, Doku and Haaland. De Bruyne was the second best at the club, but he of course is leaving at the end of his contract this year. So we have got a big summer ahead of us. Of course the 2 players we signed this season will be joining us in season 2, but on top of that we have got a huge budget both transfer wise and wage wise to completely change how this squad looks, and I think the City team we're about to see after this transfer window is going to be totally different to the one we know. Now, I said to expect big changes in our second season, and there was. £200 million worth of sales, over £200 million spent. This City team has a totally new look to it. But before I show you it, if you are enjoying this video or you just want to be nice as it is Christmas time, I'd really appreciate any support by smashing the like button on the video. It really does help me out here on the channel. If you haven't yet done it, make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well as we push for 50,000 subscribers, which will be an unbelievable milestone when we hit it. I genuinely can't wait for the day that happens. And it's always great to get involved with you guys as well. So drop a comment down below what you think of the rebuild, what you think the issue is at Man City. It'll be great to see what you guys are thinking, but let's start with the massive amount of sales that we've made this summer. As mentioned, Kevin De Bruyne was let go at the end of his contract, and at age 34, he has got himself another big deal, a 1-year one at Atletico Madrid, so he left us for free and signed for the Spanish Giants. Another sale out was a forgotten man in Calvin Phillips, who has gone to sign for Barcelona on loan, and they had a mandatory fee of 33 million, so I actually think when they do pay that, that's not the worst business ever. We've also allowed Ilkay Gundogan to leave at the end of his deal, and he has signed for PSG. James McAtee didn't exactly show progress at Girona last season, so we've sold him permanently to Valencia in the Spanish divisions, and as you can see, after the last year, he wasn't really expected to ever be part of this City side. He'll go down as a legendary right back in the Premier League, but Kyle Walker's time was up at Man City. I think that was pretty clear, and we have sold him to Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia for £5 million, where he is earning 750k a week, so he makes some money, but mainly clear his wages off the books. 24-year-old Burkina Faso international Issa Kabore has also left on a permanent deal, signing for Hertha Berlin in the German leagues for 5 million quid. He spent a few seasons on loan at some of City's partner clubs, then went to Marseille on loan, then to Benfica, and now leaves permanently for only a slight profit. Jan Couto spent last season out on loan at Borussia Dortmund, and now he's sold him permanently to Barcelona, another one that City bought in, loaned out for ages, and is now gone for a pretty decent fee of 20 million. But the three most expensive sales that we had were all key players. The first one was Bernardo Silva, who wanted a new contract and he wanted a mega deal to be the best paid player at the club, and I just didn't quite think, as good as he is, that he should be a player that we offer a long-term massive money deal to. It's time for a new era. He was okay last season, not amazing, so he sold him to Saudi for 37.5 million, where he's on 1.4 million pounds a week. A similar story for John Stones, whose contract was coming towards an end, and when I had a look at what he would be wanting, it just didn't make sense to extend his deal when we wanted to kind of rejuvenise this side. So he's been sold to Al Ittihad. He wanted to go as soon as the offer came in, 73 million pounds for the English defender. But the biggest sale was Jack Grealish, who's gone to Al Hilal on the same money as Bernardo Silva. The 29-year-old Englishman wasn't great for his last year, so to get some money for him, actually most of the money that the club originally spent, I think works out pretty well for us. And of course, that meant we had a ton of money to improve this Man City side, and also lots of big holes in the squad that we needed to fill. Before we see those transfers though, if you'd like to try a rebuild like this, then you can get access to the save files for this rebuild and every rebuild that we have done here on the channel over on my Patreon. Over there, you can come support me as a creator. It really does go a long way, and anyone that does so is just amazing. I really thank all of you that support me over there on Patreon. But on top of the save files, you don't just get them, you also get early access to the rebuilds. You can view them early over on there before they're seen on YouTube, with no ads of course. You get to decide which rebuild we do next, and there's also giveaways on the horizon for the Patreon members too. So if any of that sounds interesting, or you just want to support me, I'd massively appreciate it. So thank you to the guys who are already over there, and thank you to anyone who checks them out. But let's check out our new incomings. Of course, we know Samu, who spent last season out on loan at Mallorca and played quite a lot for them in La Liga, so now he's ready here as a deputy for Rodri. And Goncalo Inacio spent last season out on loan in Portugal and made a pretty good job of it, and now comes to the club as a player that will be expecting to compete in that first team. Once again, we have made another signing thinking about the future, with Oscar Glauc signed from RB Salzburg but loaned out for a further season. Of course, with De Bruyne leaving, we had a creative spot in midfield that needed to be replaced, and we have purchased that with a different player, but Oscar Glauc is one for the future, one that we've loaned out to get some more game time. He was available for only 16 million, and I think when he comes to us next year, he'll be more than ready for the Premier League. Don't worry, you'll see some more recognisable faces in a few minutes, but in terms of right backs, I really thought Rico Lewis could do a great job for us, and I just wanted someone, instead of Kyle Walker, to kind of deputise for Lewis and push him a little bit. I didn't want it to be someone that's going to take all of Lewis's minutes, so we found Victor Gomez, a 25-year-old Spaniard playing out at Braga in Portugal, where he was excellent, caught the eyes of our scouts. He's cost us around 20 million, and he's a player that is considered a good level for a Man City team, so he might not be the most flashy of names, but I think he'll be a great option for the squad. But I said there would be some flashy signings, and here we have them. Mark Guehi was the first player coming through the door that was of real note. He is going to replace John Stones, really, in terms of those minutes in our team. The English 25-year-old signs from Crystal Palace. He's cost us 44.5 million, which was a lot. It was a release clause fee as well, I believe, but I think he is more than worth it. A leader who's still got plenty of years left in the tank, an England international with a lot of ability and still the potential to get better yet. A player that screams Manchester City to me is João Pedro, so I thought he would be a great option to play both up front as a deputy to Haaland, something that I felt the club needed, and also a wide option. We have bought him in from Brighton at 23 years of age for 50 million quid. Brighton make a nice profit. It could rise to 65 if all goes well for him, but I think this is a fantastic talent and one that's really going to benefit our squad. But we needed a KDB replacement. We needed someone of a De Bruyne-esque level, and I think we found it. Florian Wirtz of Bayer Leverkusen Leverkusen. He of course wasn't going to stay at that club for all that long, and we were the first team to pounce on him. We've activated his release clause of 93 million quid. It's a lot more than I'd ever normally spend in a rebuild, but when a player of this quality comes along who seemingly fits the team perfectly, I thought it had to be done. So Flo Wirtz is in as our new star midfielder. And with the business that we've done in this window, not only have we lowered the age of the squad a pretty significant amount, but also the wages at the club have gone down a hell of a lot. We have sold the majority of the high earners in the team, and I still think we've got a great 11. Now, I still feel there are some areas of this team that I want to improve, and I accept that this team isn't quite yet at that Champions League treble winning Man City team that they once had, but I think we will get there. We've now mixed some youth into this lineup, more so than what I think City were allowing for before. There's plenty of great players on the bench as well, who will hopefully give us something this year, and I have faith that this team could challenge for a title. And it is what is expected of us. We've got 11 to 5 odds of winning the league. We are expected to go all the way and win the trophy, and the board are expecting nothing less also. They want us to win the Premier League. So the pressure is on. We have made our own Manchester City team here, really, and even though it's not fully complete yet, I still think this is a team that has the level to go and win that Premier League title. But am I going to be right? Well, I must say, Season 2 makes me think that maybe, after all, Pep might be a pretty good manager, and I might have maybe stepped over the mark a little bit in terms of how many players we let go. Once again, we suffered an early exit in the Champions League, 0-0 against Bayern Munich in Leg 1 at the Allianz in the 85th minute. We were knocked out by Matthias Tell. So we were knocked out of UCL in the round of 16 again. I can confirm we did not win the Carabao Cup, we couldn't retain it. We lost to Spurs in the quarter-final, and the Premier League, spoiler alert, we didn't win. So how did we hang on to our job? Well, there's the FA Cup. Of course, a prestigious trophy, but not exactly what we were aiming for in this rebuild. We were up against Spurs, who seem to be our bane so far, but we went 1-0 up through Haaland. And honestly, if it wasn't for the big Norwegian, I'm not sure where we would be. João Pedro, Wirtz and Haaland linking up to help us win 2-0 and lift that trophy. But as mentioned, we didn't win the league this year, and I've got to be honest with you, wasn't even close. In fact, we finished in 4th place. Liverpool, Chelsea and Spurs once again winning that title with 95 points, 15 points ahead of us. It is a disastrous season. 2 draws is great, but 10 losses is insane really, considering Spurs only lost 3 all year. Really not good enough from us. We need to be so much better than this, and I think we're lucky that we're even still in a job. I wouldn't have expected Spurs to be the team that took our place when we started to fall away, but this just shows me how much work we still have to do in this City side. It was a big year of change, but clearly the transfers didn't all work out the way I wanted. Saying that, Florian Wirtz was absolutely exceptional, came in and made it look like De Bruyne had never left the club. He was great in terms of chances created, but also goals too. Savio did pretty well across the course of the season, but we were let down again by some of the more key names. Rico Lewis I'll let off because he is of course still young, but Ruben Dias we would have expected to do a little bit better. João Pedro started 39 games and only scored 9. Gvardiol as well, not quite at it, nor was Akanji, Ake, Kovacic. I thought most of our big overhaul was already kind of done with all the sales that we've made last summer, but I think we're going to be seeing even more in the coming window. And I feel like the board are encouraging me to do so because they've given me nearly £2 million of wage budget, £300 million of transfer budget. I'm not going to be silly and splash it on nothing and just splash it for the sake of it, but I really do think this team needs some strong additions if we're going to compete for that Premier League title yet again. And in Season 3, I thought I might have to make some big transfers, and we did so. Over £150 million spent and nearly the same amount bought in through sales. It was another massive window here at Man City. The first departure to note was Ederson, who left at the end of his contract. We did go to offer him a new deal, but he wanted a crazy amount of money, and at 32 I thought, you know what, I'm not going to give a massive contract to him. I want him to move on, and we were ready for someone new. He's of course a great goalkeeper, but I think it's time we found a new one, and he has gone to PSG for now. We made $6 million off of the sale of good young striker Divan Mubwama, who looks like he's going to be a good Prem player, but I don't quite think he was good enough for us. We loaned him out to Troy in the first season, where in Ligue 2 he scored a ton of goals, and now Forest have came in, saw the potential, and good luck to him. Manuel Akanji has also left permanently to sign for Al Quadzia out in Saudi Arabia. £16 million for the guy who, played for us for the last 2 seasons sparingly as a starter, mainly off the bench, and didn't impress all that much, so I think his time at City was up. Calvin Phillips has had that permanent deal activated at Barcelona. He played quite a lot for them last year actually and did really well, so maybe we missed a trick with him. An interesting sale, Samu has left the club. Now he was of course brought in to be that Rodri deputy, and actually last season, his first year at the club, he did exactly what we wanted him to do. Played 19 times, mainly off the bench, and came on for Rodri most of the time. But when Liverpool came in for 38 million, I thought, you know what? We've got better players in the midfield. 21.5 million was what we paid, so we could make some money. And also, I think we've got a better player in that position now. Before we show him though, there is one other major sale, and that was Nathan Ake, who's gone for another mega contract at Al Ahly. £44 million was the fee. He's actually been pretty good for us over the last few years and has been a regular starter, so he's got some big boots to fill. Our new incoming started with an extra centre-back addition. It's Ousmane Diomande. Again, we signed a player from Sporting Club de Portugal, a brilliant ball-playing centre-back. If you've played FM, you all know about this guy. £38 million for an Ivorian defender, 22 years of age, ball-playing ability of a super high level, and he's going to slot right in that defence. I wanted a bit of extra cover at wing-back, left wing-back this is, so I've signed Victor Christensen, who is a Leicester City player who hasn't exactly pulled up any leaves since he's been at the club, but in-game, our scouts really recommended him highly. We've paid 39.5 million. He was the only left-back that our scouts really thought was of an A-level or higher based on their scout report, so I've decided to trust them, and Christensen is in. Edison left, and we needed a new goalkeeper, so in comes Anatoly Trubin, the 24-year-old Ukrainian international. Looks to be a great goalie. He's about 8 years younger as well than Edison. The former Shakhtar Donetsk #1 has been at Benfica for the last few years and done so well that he's earned himself this big move, £43 million, for what I think is an unbelievable goalkeeper. And if we're talking about Rodri backups, I think we've got the best one here, someone that could eventually become Rodri when Rodri gets too old. In my opinion, Nico Gonzalez, in Football Manager at least, looks to be the man. I mean, he's got great passing ability, a brilliant defensive player, a metronome that all the balls are going to come into. He's going to dictate tempo, be a real calm influence at the base of our midfield, and he signs for a pretty big fee of 45 million. We've done a lot of our shopping in Portugal in this rebuild, and I'm hoping the Spanish international will adapt to the league and really fit in our squad. And now, looking at this side, I feel much happier than what I did last season. I still liked it last season, but looking at the team now, I'm very impressed. I mean, that back line looks great, and there's a lot of youth in there too. Rico Lewis, by the way, is now 21 and looking fantastic, and is becoming a real leader as well in this Manchester City side. Of course, we've got Ruben Dias, Ignacio, who we signed in year 1, and Gvardiol. Diomande will likely be pushing Dias out the door in some time, I would have thought. Rodri, Wirtz, and Nico Gonzalez is an exceptional three-man midfield, with João Pedro, Phil Foden, and Haaland supposedly as our best attackers. But as you can see, there's plenty of options on the bench to come in and do a good job. For those wondering about Oscar Bob, came back to us last year and had a real impact in our Premier League team, so we'll be hoping for more of the same from the Norwegian, but we need to step it up this year. The board still want us to win the league, and we still have really favourable odds to win it. The fact that we came 4th last season was a total shock to pretty much everyone. We need to be up there, we need to be winning trophies, and I think this year, if we don't, as much as I always say it, we're going to lose our job if we're not at least competing for that Premier League title. I'm almost certain of it. So at this point, I'm 3 seasons down at Man City, and whilst we have won some domestic cups, I feel like Pep Guardiola when he scratched his head and made it bleed, because I just don't understand what is happening with this City team. This year in the Champions League, we managed to go one further than our previous 2 seasons, making it to the quarter-final stage where we got a pretty favourable draw against Napoli, or so I thought until Osimhen scored. But we were at the Etihad and we weren't going to get beat here this time, so we turned it on Oscar Bob into João Pedro for the equaliser. A Florian Wirtz corner found the head of Ignacio to put us in the lead. And a brilliant passing move in the 55th minute allowed Foden to get up the left wing, where he was able to beat 2 men and get in a great position to play the ball across, and of course Florian Wirtz was there to tap it home for the win. So leg 1 was a 3-1 win to us, and it seemed like a UCL semi-final was on the horizon until we went to Napoli and we lost 3-0, conceding in the 120th minute. And at this point you're probably all wondering how I'm still in a job. I know I am, but the reason is Domestic cups seem to be our thing. In fact, every year so far we've at least won some bit of silverware, but that looked unlikely this season in the FA Cup final, where after 40 seconds Spurs went 1-0 up. But as time went on at Wembley, we were able to fight back just that little bit to allow us to get an equaliser through a Phil Foden header. And whilst they might not be playing for me in every other competition, they clearly want me to keep my job, because João Pedro slotted home to get us the win, and we won the FA Cup against Spurs for the second year on the bounce. But the issue for us was once again our Premier League performance. Because I don't really understand what's going on, in all honesty. Spurs have once again absolutely stormed the league. We have been terrible with 70 points. And if you have a look, we lost 8 and drew 10. I don't know how we still got a job. If we have a look at the club vision, it's a C. I mean, they seem to be fairly happy with what we're doing, and I really don't understand why, because this team's terrible. I'd sack myself if I could at this point. If it wasn't for the big Norwegian, Erling Haaland, maybe because we're wearing his shirt, he's doing us a favour, I don't know where we'd be. Yes, we're only 3 points off second place, but I mean, Spurs are absolutely storming the division. 3 years in a row now, they've won the title, and Ange Postecoglou's side just seem unbeatable at this stage, and I don't know what we're going to be able to do to fix it. And whilst we have made a lot of changes, and the majority of this squad is going to be our own, I'm still pretty proud of the fact that our best performers are all players that we brought in, bar Haaland of course. Trubin, João Pedro, Wirtz and Nico Gonzalez were all excellent this season. Ignacio doing pretty well too, but it's a lot of those squad level players that just aren't quite making the grade for us. I mean, Marc Guéhi, he played a lot, didn't do all that well either. I don't know. I really don't know what we need to do to make this team work. We've again got a massive budget, but there has to be the right players to bring in to improve this team. So I might have to rethink this. Maybe it's a tactical issue. We're going to have a real deep dive and try and improve this City team for the coming year. And in Season 4, with a lot of pressure on us, I've made 2 very big decisions that I'm hoping can change the tides in this City rebuild. The first one was all about the players that we signed and sold, because I've decided that we're not really going to go crazy anymore in terms of lots of players out the door. We're going to try and keep the squad mostly the same. The only outgoings that you will see were Mateus Nunes, who left for £37 million, and Savio, who's left to Chelsea at age 23 for a fee of £44 million, rising to 54. So we got a good fee for him. For those two, we're making nearly £100 million, which is obviously great, but that was all I did in terms of outgoings. That is, other than a couple of loans of some young players that the club's developing that look great. The first one is Ismail Matovu, and there's also this young defender, Owen Williams, who I think will go right to the very top. Incomings-wise though, I've tried to stay pretty relaxed. We signed 2 players, one of which was bringing James Trafford back to the club to be our backup goalkeeper with Ortega no longer here. We've got Trafford now deputising for Trubin, £23 million from Burnley. And then we went for a real star name. Savio was out the door and in came Lamine Yamal. Now he's not exactly taken Barcelona by storm as he has in real life, but he is still a great player. We paid £65 million for him. He is still only 20, even 4 years into this world, which tells you just how good this guy is. But he is an unbelievable talent who, if he can grow with us, could be our real like Messi, our shining light in this team. But I mentioned I was making another change. It wasn't just keeping most of our squad the same. I've decided we are going to say goodbye to Pep Guardiola football. Or at least, kind of. I mean, we're still playing a 4-3-3. It's still a tiki-taka. We've adjusted some instructions and we've adjusted some roles. It's going to be a lot less defensive because that's just not really working for us. We are going to have our fullbacks bombing up the line. We've got a more attacking midfield as well. And I'm hoping somehow this will all come together and give us a very good year of football. Now, if you have a look at this team, I actually think the defense is stat. The midfield is so good. You couldn't really get a better midfield than this. Oscar Bob and Pedro as our best wide players is interesting, but there are some good options on the bench like Doku, Glauc, Yamal, who are all going to compete for minutes. Erling Haaland, of course, still leads the line. Look, it pretty much is now a totally different team from what we initially inherited. Most of it, particularly at a squad level, not just the first 11, are our own players. And this is where I feel like it's now or never. The team has to do well. We've adjusted the tactic. We've said goodbye to the Pep Guardiola way. And I'm hoping that's going to make the difference. The board still want us to win the league, as you can see. The game expects us to win it. Again, 2-1 odds, really favourable compared to Arsenal and Liverpool. So we've got to step up to the mark. This team is clearly ready to win the league. We just need to get over that mental block and push Spurs for that trophy. And after 4 years here at City, I think finally we might be on to some kind of formula to get some success. Now I will say the Champions League, we were knocked out again in an early stage-ish in the quarter-final against RB Leipzig, but once again we have managed to make the FA Cup final, which seems to be our saving grace so far. And it was probably our easiest tie yet. No more facing off against Spurs, instead we were up against Brighton, and it was João Pedro of all people against his old club to put us in the lead. A Foden corner in the second half allowed us to find the head of Ruben Dias, who contributed to a goal. Brighton though were able to get a goal back as Evan Ferguson found Tariq Lamptey in the box, but in the 90th minute with the scores at 2-1 we were able to seal the deal. Gvardiol to Wirtz into Doku, whose cross found of course Erling Haaland to get us that victory. And every other season that has been where this little roundup of games has ended, but this time in the Premier League we were actually in a title race, and as the season came to a close we were pushing for it. And with 2 games to go there was 3 teams competing for the title, only a couple points between us. We had to face Chelsea at Stamford Bridge and we managed to get a 1-0 victory, a great goal from Rodri. And that led to a final day where it was a Manchester derby. Now at this point both us, Arsenal and Spurs all could win the league on the final day of the season. All we had to do was get a victory and hopefully score a few goals. But if anyone was going to want to ruin our party it would be United, so Haaland scoring a penalty was a great relief. And it was a nervy 1-0 until late on when Oscar Glaubt managed to slot home. That was only in the 80th minute, but from there we were able to power through. Erling Haaland added a third, and with the pressure off, a Lamine Yamal corner was able to find the big Norwegian for a hat-trick. So we had finally done it. We had won a Premier League trophy, and as you can see it was so close. 87 points for us, 85 for Spurs and 84 for Arsenal. Now if you have a look, Arsenal did lose their last game 3-0 against Fulham, and while Spurs did win it wasn't enough for them because we of course got 3 points as well. So we did end up disrupting that Spurs dominance. Man City are back on top and we have a Premier League alongside 3 FA Cups and a Carabao Cup, mind you. I make it seem like we've been unsuccessful, but you know what I mean. We have finally got one of the big trophies under our belt, and with a year to go I've now got my sights set on that UCL. And our change in system has definitely worked. In fact lots of our players flourish, the likes of Rodri, Doku, Wirtz and Haaland really shining. Oscar Glaubt and Lamine Yamal were also excellent too, even Victor Christensen doing pretty well for us, so clearly I should trust my scouts. He was a good find for him really. João Pedro added 9 goals, Nico Gonzalez got 7, Oscar Bob with 3, everyone contributed, and we are now a Premier League winning side. As a manager here at City, we've managed to replicate at least some of what Pep's done, but as we head into our 5th and final season, I'm hoping we can win some kind of treble to at least say we've done something similar to Pep. It's a long shot, but that's what we're going to aim for. So after finally winning the league title, I was setting my sights on some big trophy haul in our 5th and final season, but there might be a spanner in the works because we have lost 2 very key players at Man City. One that wasn't so key was Victor Christensen, who's moved to Atletico Madrid. Had a good year for his last time, but granted he did want more first team football, so we get about half of our money back from the Spanish club. But time was also up for Ruben Dias. The captain of our club, age 31, has decided it was time to leave. He's gone to sign for Al Ahly, again on a mega contract. Seems to be the retirement home for former Man City players. He's not actually been as important as you might think over recent years, so maybe him leaving will be a blessing. Perhaps the most unfortunate sale though was our Ballon d'Or winner Rodri, who has left to sign for Real Madrid. It's a move that you could kind of see happening at some point in real life too. In this in-game world, he got down to 1 year left on his contract and he didn't want to sign a new one because of the interest from Real Madrid. So we had a choice, keep him for a year and let him go for free, or sell him. We sold him for 50 million quid. He's been a great servant, but his time is now up in a City shirt. Fear not though, I think our replacements have been excellent. First, Christensen was one of our only left back options, so we needed a new one. In comes Bournemouth's Milos Kerkez, the Hungarian international, aged 24 at this point, has signed for 30 million, which I think is a great fee for the calibre of player we've got. Perhaps the bargain of the century, we have managed to pick up Pedri from Barcelona for only 55 million. On the transfer list at Barca, it seems like Barca haven't been doing too well and he wanted to leave despite being amazing for them in recent years. So to get him, I think, is such a coup. A great midfield option who takes us, I think, to a completely new level. But our biggest signing was our, I guess, Rodri replacement. He's going to come in to mainly play in that DM role. It's Warren Zaire-Emery of PSG, 22 years of age, a French international, 100 million quid. It's a lot of money. It's a mega contract, but we are replacing one of the world's best players, and we are going to get plenty of years out of the young Frenchman. And tell me this isn't the greatest team that I have ever assembled in a rebuild. I mean, that back four is obviously great, but as you go forward, I mean, Wirtz, Pedri, and Warren Zaire-Emery as a midfield with the likes of Nico Gonzalez on the bench. Lamine Yamal as well doesn't even make this team apparently. Let's imagine him in there instead of João Pedro, and you've got Yamal, Foden, and Haaland as a forward line. Gerhi, Diamonde. Only 4 players that we initially inherited make our best 11. That's Gvardiol, Rico Lewis, Phil Foden, and Erling Haaland. We've got a great squad filled with talent all over the pitch, and I think this really is a easy Champions League competing team. Whether we'll win it is another question, but we should certainly be up there. We've also saw Erling Haaland become the 3rd best player in City history, apparently as a legend, behind the likes of Kompany and Aguero. He's overtaken Mancini and Pep Guardiola now. Maybe if we can win some more trophies this season, he'll go down as the best City player in history. But obviously, that's a big maybe. We need to try and win some silverware. So, in our final season of our City rebuild with our completely new look team, we were aiming to replicate the famous Guardiola treble. Now, granted, it didn't quite happen. In fact, for the first time in ages, we didn't actually win a domestic cup trophy. There was the Community Shield, but I'm not going to count that. But of course, our big aim this year was winning the UCL. But that was going to be tough when we lost 2-0 in the semi-final at Inter Milan Stadium. However, when they came to the Etihad, Erling Haaland got us off to an early lead. That made it 2-1, and from there, we pushed on. Haaland again able to score a goal to make it 2-2, and as time went on in a cagey game, we were able to find the opening, Doku finding Oscar Bob, who got us the win and sent us to the final. So now we had the chance to win the biggest trophy, the biggest game of our Man City team's career. We were facing off against Real Madrid in a final. And having came back against Inter Milan, we were going to have to do so again, conceding after 4 minutes. And within the first 10, we were 2-0 down, as Real Madrid were able to carve us apart, and Mbappe scored to give them the lead. Obviously, Real Madrid's team is star-studded, but so is our Man City team at this point, and we prove that. Nico with a brilliant ball into Phil Foden to make it 2-1. And in probably the most exciting Champions League final in history, with only 20 minutes on the clock, Erling Haaland bared down on goal and made it 2-2. And from there, the game seemed to settle. Neither side wanted to lose, and no one really went for it. That was until the 86th minute. Oscar Bob found Erling Haaland off the bar, and it was tapped in by Pedri against Real Madrid. So the former Barcelona man was able to get the winning goal against his former rivals, securing us the UCL trophy in our final season. But it wasn't only that, because we also won the league. We managed to win it with 91 points in, I think, our best result yet. Clear of Arsenal by 2, Chelsea a little bit further behind, Fulham doing really well, by the way, to get 5th place with 70 points, whilst Man United are sitting on 56 points, 10th place. We've flown away with it. Liverpool had a really poor season as well, only 48 points under manager Xabi Alonso, but we've done incredibly well. We have managed to restore Man City to the top of the table. João Pedro being a great signing by the looks of it, scoring 20 goals in this most recent season. Haaland, of course, still at it. Wirtz, Foden, all doing so well for us, amongst the many names at the club that have done great. I mean, you can have a look. Rico Lewis had a really good season as well for the first time in a long time. Pedri was vital, as was Foden, Zaire-Emery, everyone contributing to a brilliant season for Manchester City. Haaland stays as the 3rd best player in the history of the club, but it is nice to see that our assistant manager has made it onto the favoured personnel, as has Florian Wirtz. So it's been a great time in this Man City rebuild. Even if it was a tough start to get on with, we've managed to completely overhaul the squad and eventually win some massive trophies. Do you think you could do better? Well, the save files will be on Patreon for you to take over and either continue after this point or try and do a better job than what we did, as well as all of the other rebuilds that we've done. You can find this one. So thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support this year. Have a lovely Christmas, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.